And joining me from Los Angeles is a writer and curator, Michelle Sam. Good to have you join us, Michelle Sam. Now, months after the killing of George Floyd, which sparked global protests, and we've seen several shootings of African Americans in the U.S., many thought that by now there will be reforms in the police. So tell us what is going on and how African Americans feeling at this moment.
African Americans are just tired. It would be idealistic to think that there'd be reforms by now, but unfortunately, you have 400 years of oppression, and this is nothing new. Before George Floyd, there was a bunch of high-profile deaths, as well as the deaths that necessarily weren't covered by the media. So people are feeling angry, hopeless, exhausted. But also, we're persevering. We're keeping on. We're saying their names: Breonna Taylor, Tatiana Jefferson, George Floyd, Philando Castile, Trayvon Martin. So that's kind of the state that we're in. It's been an intense summer, but at the same time, we're leading up to a very, very, very landmark election that can change the state and ensure the trajectory of the United States. So, yeah.
So sadly, we hear now that Jacob Blake is now paralyzed. We've also seen several violent protests in the U.S., but his parents and family members have condemned those protests, and they are calling for a value, some sort of commensurate punishment or justice that is commensurate with the value of his life. What do you think that justice will mean to the family in this case?
Justice would mean to the family would be charging the cops that did it, because he was unarmed, his back was turned, his 3 sons saw him shot on their birthday. It's an outrage. So historically, cops have been put on leave, administrative leave, or they were silently released, or they were not charged. Justice would look like, in terms of they're charged, they're given a trial, with a non-corrupt jury, and are given a sentence for the crime. Oftentimes, these crimes are ignored against Black bodies and the police brutality. So that's what justice would look like. But unfortunately, we live in a system that is broken when it comes to getting justice for police brutality against people of color. So we continue to march, we continue to protest, we continue to be vocal, and we continue to share our stories.
So we understand that there is a political dimension to this, because people are looking up to authorities to do something, whether in the Congress or in the White House, or even just in the state Congress, to do something about this. So when you listen to remarks from the Democratic National Convention or that of the Republican National Convention, is there hope? Do you think that politicians really get what's going on and are willing to do something about it?
Yes, I do think that there is hope. Kamala Harris has been at some protests, as well as, it's not only just the higher level of offices, it's the grassroots effort, it's community organizing, it's the state level, it's all across the board. But, this is a very pivotal time, in this country's nation in terms of determining who we are, and people's perceptions of the U.S. But there is definitely hope, because it's not only just, the White House, it's the lawyers, it's the protesters, it's the healers, it's parents teaching, their kids not to raise racist kids. It's people learning about their democratic rights, as well as their legal rights, as well as us continuing to be vocal. Black people across the diaspora, African Americans, Caribbean, African, Europeans, and uniting, because at the end of the day, they would like us to be divided, but together, we're more powerful as a collective.
Talking about being divided, we've also seen violent protests erupt in the past few days. What would you say about these violent protests and the impact on the messaging itself?
Well, it's unfortunate because, I've been to some of the protests, and Black Lives Matter is peaceful. And unfortunately, you have, different groups who have an agenda, who are trying to co-opt the movement. But also, you have to keep in mind, police brutality against Black bodies has been happening for a long time. Some people are fed up, or some people are, co-opting it to kind of make their point, especially if they're more on the radical left or radical right. You have to keep in mind that Black Lives Matter has always been a peaceful protest, and to keep in mind who the people are that are protesting, as well as what we're protesting for, and not lose sight of that, or have the message be corrupted by agents of chaos.
Curator and writer Michelle Sam, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.